Hi, Stacey. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today and sharing some of the wonderful things that we've been, discussing with everyone. So thank you for your time today.
Excellent. Thanks
Yeah.
for arranging this. Thanks,
Mhm.
Juliana.
Of course. And maybe to get started, for those listening or watching us, introduce yourself to us and let us know what you do, and then we will get right into it.
Excellent. So so here's me. I'm Stacey Aarssen, and I specialize in employee benefits. And one of the reasons why we connected is I just wanted to share with people perhaps things they didn't know about employee benefits.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And I think I really liked this conversation. Like when you first had the idea, very much like you said, a lot of times we have the desire to get healthier, to invest in ourselves, and we have resources that we can tap into that we don't even know about, right? Which is very much what your expertise comes to play. And what I think is cool is that because we have been working together on your health as well, so we have both sides of this equation here. So maybe start from the beginning and let's begin like when we first started working together, what were some of the goals, health goals that you had? And then we go all the way into how can people with similar goals tap into their health benefits as well?
Yes, great. Well, great. Yeah. I wanted to be really crystal clear on what I ate. So
Mhm.
one of the reasons that I watched you grow and it's when you started introducing the DNA. And so, because I've tried every diet out there, I swear. And I wanted to be really crystal clear and work with someone. I also realized I need someone to be accountable to
Mhm.
and to help guide me. I needed a Sherpa, so to
I
speak, to
love
guide
it.
me to up the mountain. So that's why I reached out.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And from the context of having tried every diet, right, which is a lot of times, I'll say that's a point of similarity in a lot of the clients that I work with. And when we come to DNA, it's not about any particular diet. It's very much what your body is designed to best function on, right? So we may pick elements of different things, but it's very much tailored to you. So how would you say that it has changed how you eat and how you look at food from what you've tried and known before?
Yeah. So first of all, I've been with the program now a couple months. I'm down about 13 pounds, and my gut issues are gone, which is great. I had a lot of gut issues, and the thing that I like the most is um, I'm learning is to be patient with myself as well, to be
Yeah.
patient with the process, being kind. The mental health piece or the emotional piece is the number one
Yeah.
thing that's really helped as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think that's the big piece that a lot of women, when they first come to me, they want a diet, right? Even if it's like a more like lifestyle style of eating, but it's usually focused on the food. But I think what genetics can do is that we open the spectrum of what we actually work on. And for most women, just the food piece is actually not going to give what we want, especially later in life in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, right? If we don't look at what is inflaming the body, stress and all its capacities, as well as sleep quality. And like you said, the mental health, the emotional side, we just keep sort of, making a little progress and then we fall back to old habits.
Yeah.
I love that you are embracing the wholeness of the journey for sure.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, testing, there's many DNA tests out there. And I know when you first came to me, you had actually tested with a different company, right? And again, I'm not endorsing companies. This is not the goal, the point here. But you had worked with a different company before and you had a very comprehensive report, like very, very big report. But there's not as much translation into action, right? Into real life implementations. So since doing that test from what we've done, like what was your experience in terms of being able to actually implement versus just having, because I know some people do the test, but they don't know what to do with it, right? So maybe talk to us a little bit about that part.
Yeah. So I received this, like you said, this huge document with my full DNA. And it's like, It was reviewed with me, but I didn't really know what the different markers are, how it correlates with my mood to um, perhaps childhood trauma, or why do I eat a certain way. There was no, I guess, connection or bridge. Like with you analyzed this document, and I know yours is, the one you do is, there were some pieces that maybe that it can be added on to, but
Mhm.
you're able to, I would say, like put a bridge. If anybody's done hypnosis or NLP, or it's about creating a bridge,
Right.
to get you to the result or the knowledge. And that's what I didn't have, the knowledge piece. And I had a lot of whys left. Like, why do I do this? Or how is this
Mhm.
relevant to me? There was no, there was, it laid out, what foods are inflammatory and things, but it didn't really narrow down to exactly what, because I had done all that. I'd been eating what they said in the old one, but what some of these foods that I found out through our discussions were very much inflammatory to me, and I have to,
Mm.
cut them back, so your your analysis in our discussions it's a lot more detailed, and it gave me a lot more direction, which I was looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main components of it, and I think that's a big point of differentiation too, is a lot of the tests out there are a lot of times looking at, genes, single genes, or mapping them out, but understanding how everything plays together. And really from there, having clinical correlations made so you can actually implement and understand your symptoms. It's kind of like the next layer, right? And I think,
Yeah,
for people that have even tried DNA before and not gotten as much out of it, very much like what you described, I think it's this connection that just looking at single genes, we all would end up with a list of like 100 supplements and very much confused because some areas may slightly contradict as well because you need to understand the nuances of it, right? So it is definitely, I think, from a lot of the direct to consumer testing available versus working with a practitioner, you would definitely get a different experience by working with somebody that can make those bridges, like you said, right? Yes. Thank you so much.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your experience. Because I know for some people, they think of DNA, they think more like the ancestry side of things, right? But
Yes.
what we do is, of course, on the health side. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, especially when you just said about the supplements, and what I learned, and I had been taking some supplements that actually did the
Mhm.
opposite for my DNA, for my system, which was,
Yeah.
that was like a light bulb. It's like, oh, and or even certain foods. It's like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, like where one person can have that, not I couldn't, it's just based on my DNA system, which,
Yeah.
like I said, was like light bulbs for me.
Exactly. And I think too, explaining some of the things that we women tend to blame ourselves for, right? So I'll use myself as an example. I have, like, I'll say several of the hunger genes, and it's variable or variant position, meaning that if they are activated, if I'm really tired and stressed or overwhelmed, my brain is always hungry. That's like the easiest, simplest way to say it. And working in the field that I have, I've been studying health for over 20 years now, in the weight loss space for about 10, a little over 10. So I've always like expected myself just to not have any cravings, not have it all figured out because of the almost like those false expectations sometimes we practitioners put in ourselves.
Right.
And once I understood my genetics, I thought, oh, wow, like this makes a lot of sense. I could actually trace and understand the reason why I have these outcomes by looking at those, genetic kind of like cascades in between. So then we go from a more empowered place on if I know I have this and I can tell when it's being triggered because of how my symptoms come back, this is what I do now, right? So in 2 or 3 days, I just, get back on track without all the self-blame and like you said, the whys that I had before. Why was this happening?
Exactly. And that's what I had so many of those whys. Yeah.
I love it. And answering the whys and connecting, like finding like your own like treasure roadmap of root cause is probably my favorite thing to do, like truly on a personal level. And I think genetics gave me this opportunity to, be a lot more precise in terms of helping you determine that. So it's always been something I love to do. I could never just do something without knowing why. Like my brain has to come with, right? So it's very much how I practice as well. So,
Yeah.
yes. Now, switching gears a little bit, and something that you, because of your knowledge and expertise, realized that I thought, wow, this is amazing. Let's sit here and record, is that you were able to actually, get coverage for the work we done together, right? For your health journey with myself. So, for those of us listening, because I know there's a lot of people that want to work on themselves and their health, but they may not even know what is available to them in terms of house spending accounts or wellness benefit plans and things like that. So maybe let's start from your experience and share with us how you're able to get coverage for 100% coverage for my services.
Right. Yeah. So for myself, so my business, I am incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a incorporated business, we have options to put a health spending account in place. And it's interesting because not some a lot of people don't even know what they are or how they work. Now, some may have access to through their group plan. Let's say they work in a corporate space. A health spending account could be an add-on to a group space. But let's take
Mm-hmm.
myself as a solopreneur
Mm-hmm.
with an incorporated business. I am incorporated. So that could be, anybody that is incorporated. So I have a health spending account that I've set up for myself and my husband in our business, and we put a maximum amount of dollars level. And so with your services, because you are a registered nutritionist,
Mm-hmm.
you are a listed practitioner, that I was able to submit the amount of money that's to pay you
Mm-hmm.
through my health spending account. So now that money that it costs is 100% tax deductible expense for my business, and now that is 100% tax free benefit to me. So I'm able to
Mm-hmm.
now extract those dollars out of my business tax free. So instead of me paying for your services with after tax dollars, I
Mm-hmm.
was able to pay for them with corporate dollars.
Right.
Yes. So now my situation is unique because I am able to set up a health spending account.
Mm-hmm.
So the other option, if you're our corporate employee, like one of the questions, how do they have access? And
Mm-hmm.
so in our discussions to prep for this meeting, I looked at some different companies and what if practitioners, if nutritionist was a listed practitioner. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not in every plan. So here's the thing, plan design is key. So the one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I would recommend if you're an employee is to look at your benefit booklet. What are the covered practitioners? Now, let's say nutritionist is not a covered practitioner, because like I said, I looked at some and they weren't nutritionist was not listed. And
Yeah.
perhaps you've heard this from
Yes.
clients, right? And the next thing to do is ask if they have a health spending account added on, because
Mm-hmm.
through the health spending account, they could then submit whatever dollar value they've been given through their corporate group plan to
Mm-hmm.
cover your services. The other thing is I work with a lot of businesses, and I put through like a survey for the employees, for any groups that I'm working with, to see what is important to them. So the other thing is, if HRs maybe say, is there any way we can add nutritionists to our covered practitioners? Because every year a group renews, and that's the time when the plan administrator or the owner has a chance to update the plan design. Because
Mm-hmm.
just because yours doesn't cover it doesn't mean your friends won't. Because that's what I've heard as well. People think,
Yeah.
oh, it's just I don't like to say names, but let's say Sun Life or Manulife. They're big ones. Everybody knows them. I have a Sun Life plan. Just because you have a Sun Life plan doesn't mean your friend who has a Sun Life plan is the same offerings.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the other thing people you need to understand is each company and perhaps each division, like if you, let's say your management and your friends listed as employee, even
Mm-hmm.
in the same company, the management could have a nutritionist listed and maybe the employee doesn't,
Yeah.
even in the same company. So it's an HR question. It's perhaps, everybody wants to keep employees happy and engaged. Mental health is huge, mental health and brain health. With what you're doing, it goes right down the avenue of helping people have a purpose, having fulfillment, and having a better life. Just be changing the way they eat, because that's the other thing is we both know that what we eat affects our brain.
Yes.
So affects then how happy you're at work, what happens at home, your financial situation. It can lead to so many things. So just by understanding that working with a nutritionist could be helpful in even the mental health space.
Absolutely. That is wonderful. Like such an excellent explanation it is. And I also want to add briefly, and please, if I'm
Yes.
incorrect, let me know.
Yeah.
But I also know because thinking of my husband that some companies will give you the flex dollars, I guess, right? That you can choose where to allocate. And in some cases, a person can choose to allocate towards a house spending account if they work in corporate versus the more, traditional like you said, the list of practitioners as well. So maybe for some people, if that is something that they've done years ago, they may not even remember that they had that power, right, to allocate and change and maybe looking into that as well.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. Yeah, because the flexibility is usually offered in the very large companies.
Hmm.
So, but it definitely is something to look at. The other thing that's really big in the health group health
Hmm.
um, insurance or offerings are called wellness plans, and wellness
Hmm.
plans could be another way to access your services. A wellness plan would be a taxable benefit, but it still would be a way to access your services that you do as well. If people are only offered uh, X amount of dollars in each.
So maybe explain to us what is the difference between a wellness plan and say like a house spending account.
Yeah, so a health spending account, which is a lot of people in the corporate space might be aware of that they're
Hmm.
offered. So that is a tax-free benefit to them. Okay. In a wellness account, wellness accounts are offered to use for wellness, mental
Hmm.
health. So being fitness trainer, fitness equipment,
Hmm.
your kids' hockey. You could even have vet bills covered.
Hmm.
I just set one up for a client. She was all excited because she can pay for her vet bills, but
Yes.
it's a taxable benefit.
Mm.
So it's not as advantageous to go through that channel, but it is just a channel that it's just to ensure they could utilize what you do, because what you do is so unique and so amazing that people to understand their DNA and then eat to your DNA,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I think everybody should do it, but it's just um and if you can have access to corporate dollars or who you're working for, or even if you're self-employed, to have some of it or all of it covered.
Definitely, right? Which I think when you mentioned that to me, it's like, wow, this is amazing. And and the truth, I'm just gonna add something quickly here too. So thank you so much for explaining the difference. Because I think a lot of times, and you and I talked about this before, we don't even know what questions to ask sometimes, right? And we have all those resources like not being utilized, that could be the difference in between somebody getting the care that they need versus waiting and postponing, right? So, this is really wonderful. The one thing I was going to mention too, because when it comes to when I worked in corporate, so this is like many years ago. Oh my gosh, I need to think. 2010, I was in corporate. And one of the things that I did back in the day, I sort of started a corporate wellness program for the company and I ran it until I left 7 years later. And part of that, what was really interesting is that we saw a lot of engagement in all levels, like especially like we had like they had the manufacturing side as well as the office. So it wasn't just the office staff that was engaged. Like we saw a lot of engagement in all levels. But something that was really interesting and something that I really remember being excited about is how much people wanted to learn and they wanted to know alternatives and things like that. And for myself, like I've been, I'd say, eating incredibly healthy for at least 11 plus years. Like I said, studying health for over 20 years. And it wasn't until, no matter how healthy a eater I was, it wasn't until getting my genetics tested that I really saw the changes that I now have, like the last like 30, 40 pounds give or take, depending on when you start counting, of weight released because of this extra level of fine tuning. And like I said, it takes some time, it takes some fine tuning. It's not a magical pill, right? Like I'm not, at all implying that. But I think once you get to this level of certainty about how things are built, designed, our job is to just, it's a one and done test. You would never have to test again. Like even for yourself, we never retested you because what you've done before it will never change, right? Like that is just
Yeah.
like the engine specs of your car. So we can work with even different testing companies depending on if they're as comprehensive as the one you had done but to really, I'll say, take our life and health to next level. And when it comes to employees, like or even as a business owner, like having energy, having good sleep, having, balanced mood, all those things are so important for productivity, but also just enjoyment of quality of life, right? So it's really the end game. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I just want to add, you asked what advice would you give to someone?
Hmm.
Is you have to be willing to change. Like the thing is that if you want the same results, you gotta do something different. Like you got different results. Einstein, like if you want to change, you have to change what you're doing, right? You
Yeah.
can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. So, and the other thing is like the other saying I like to say is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So
Yeah.
they could work with you, but if they're not willing to drink the water,
Yes.
meaning eat the food that's you say to eat, then they're not going to change. So you have to be
Mm.
willing to and be ready to change. Like that's the thing is you have to want to change.
1000%. And I think that's really where, and I think that's if I were to pick one thing to be the downside of DNA, is that with other protocols, like more like the diets and stuff, it's easy to convince yourselves it didn't work, move on to something else. But when you get to DNA, like there technically isn't something else, right? Because this is who you are. And the moment that women realize that, for example, myself, I am intolerant to dairy, right? I cannot change that fact. So it's I either work with it, accept it, or fight it for the rest of the days, right? And I think that's the one downside is you can unlearn some of the things we learn, right? But again, is what do you really want? And at the end of the day, if you really want to feel healthier, feel better, release weight, or heal whatever parts of us, I think we can still stack enough benefits and embrace the process, right? Knowing, like I said, the patience piece too, that we sometimes come to the table with 20, 30, 40 years of choices that are not supportive of our bodies and our genetics.
Mhm.
So it will take some time to course correct. The body is miraculous, but it will take some time, right? And
Yeah.
allowing your timing, right? I think it's
Mhm.
the most important. Yeah.
I agree because yeah, it didn't happen overnight. So that's what I've come to realize. And so patience with with yourself, and like that's what I found is patience. And if something happened yesterday that I got off track, it's like okay, today's a new day. Like it's not you just don't give up, right? You just
Yeah.
keep on it and follow the plan and listen to your podcasts. And and listen, and go in the Facebook group if you're part of that, or just if they have a down day, it's all about today's a new day, and let's start
Exactly.
again. New
Right.
day. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, finding your supporting system, finding the tools, like you just said, to support you. And sometimes all we need is almost like this radio frequency that gets a little bit, staticky. And then, by using our tools and support, we get back, into clarity, right? So that sometimes, and we're all human, it happens to all of us, and we all have different people and sources we go to, but it's always that fine tuning. And I feel the more we do it with the clarity, especially of knowing your genetics, the quicker it becomes to course correct. And when we start to deviate, we can see the signs earlier. So it doesn't have to be like a full meltdown, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm snacky again. I wonder why that is. And a couple of days later, we course correct. And I think that is, I think, the power of it. Go with the ebbs and flows of life. Perfection
Yeah.
is never the goal. I think it's kind of like a bit of a self-sabotage a
Yeah.
strategy and get support, right? Which is really one of our major intentions with this conversation. And I'll put both the links for all the things you do, Stacey, and myself as well. If anybody's looking for support as well, understanding, right, their plans better, or as a business owner looking to do what he did and having, if they're incorporated business, having a house spending account set up, all of those things. I'll put all of those in the show notes as well.
Excellent. Thanks so
Mhm.
much. It's
Yes,
been
thank
lovely.
you. Thank you so much for your time. As always, I really enjoy our conversations.